When the paper trail changes, we change with it. It's just the way that it's got to go. Elizabeth Siders has now been indicted alongside of Gary Siders Jr. in a separate child sex abuse case involving a minor authorities say was not part of their immediate family. That opens this door into a whole other realm. That is not a small update. That is not a footnote. That changes the whole frame, because this case is no longer just about poverty. Not for me, it ain't. It is no longer just about neglect. It's no longer just about 16 kids being found in horrific conditions inside of a home in Hampton, Ohio. Now, according to new reporting, the investigation that brought law enforcement to that house in the first place did not begin as a simple welfare check. Oh, no. It began with a child sex abuse investigation, some allegations. Now, investigators were reportedly there seeking Gary Jr.'s DNA. And when they got inside, that's when they found the 16 kids. Shockingly, they were there investigating a sex abuse claim from a whole other kid outside of their family. And then they found all these kids. So now that we know that part of it, you know, heck, when we were trying to guess what had brought them there, we knew that it was a prior investigation, but most of us were guessing completely wrong. But we were guessing that it was him outside peeing off the porch or something. Boy, were we wrong. Oh, no. And it wasn't just, this investigation wasn't just Gary Jr. Oh, no. Elizabeth. Pregnant Elizabeth. Or, well, she wasn't, she's pregnant, ain't she? Oh, man. Well, tonight we are going to do what we always do on Hillbilly Crime. We are not going to marry our first theory. No, we are not going to protect a storyline just because it fell apart. Nope. We are going to follow the paper.
16 children, one house on Omar Street in Hampton, Ohio, and a warrant that wasn't for a welfare check.
We may have been wrong about little Elizabeth Siders. Now, I don't know. I hate to say, but look, this is really bad. For weeks, a whole lot of people looked at this case, and let's see. Let's show who we're talking about here. Elizabeth Siders. Okay. Everybody knows who we're talking about. Now, for weeks, a lot of people looked at this case and asked the very same question. The question was Elizabeth a victim too? Was she trapped in that house along with those kiddos? Let me find my glasses here. And, you know, most of us, we want to think the best of everybody, you know. It's hard for us to see a young girl. It's hard for us to see bad. At least it is for me. I don't know about y'all, but it's hard for me to look at this girl and see something other than a victim. It just is. Now, we asked, was Elizabeth a victim? Was she trapped in that house? Was she controlled by the men? Or even Grandma Siders. Heck, I don't know. Was she another woman in the middle of that mess who had been broken down, isolated, and then left with no way out?
You already know what I'm about to say. This changes everything. For weeks, a lot of us looked at Elizabeth Siders and asked the same question. Was she a victim too? Was she trapped in that house with those myself? I didn't want to see evil in a young woman's face. But tonight, the paper trail changed. When the paper trail changes, we change with it.
2 defendants, Gary Siders Jr. and Elizabeth Siders, were also indicted in a separate child sex abuse case. According to the Ohio Attorney General Andy Wilson's office, Gary Siders Jr., 36, and Elizabeth Siders, 33, were both indicted on 4 charges each, stemming from an investigation opened in March of 26. That was months ago. By the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation regarding unlawful sexual conduct with a minor. The Attorney General says the victim in this case is not a member of their immediate family. Now, and I'm learning to pay attention to the wording. They said immediate. So that means it could be a member of the distant family, just not the immediate family. Wilson says the indictments allege that Gary Jr. and Elizabeth Siders engaged in sexual conduct with a minor more than 10 years younger than their own age, between January of 22 and September of 22. That was 4 years ago. So this is going back. And you got to remember how many times she's been pregnant. That means there's some major sexual perversion going on here. That, I know I'm kind of embarrassed and ashamed of myself for not seeing it sooner and wanting to give so much of a benefit of the doubt. And see, that's where I had said before, I feel like sometimes we push our own trauma and our own stuff onto different situations. Man, this is just really. I wish I had not been so naive. I feel like I was really naive. I'm trying to close all this stuff out here on my thing. My computer's kind of being slow. So let me close all this out. Do you all feel that way? Or am I being silly? Couldn't Karen Less says, we finally know. TT says it's heartbreaking. I have so many questions. Lady Babs, thank you, honey. I got Gregory's shoes. He loves them too. Thank you. Trisha. Hello, everybody. Love Bug. Wow. Yeah, hit that like button for us, y'all. And make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure that you go up into your settings, your YouTube settings, and turn your gifting on. So that way you can receive gifted memberships. Okay. All right. So that means between January of 22 and September of 22, they were fooling with whoever they were fooling with. Should not have been fooling with. Why can't people just keep their hands to themselves? I mean, he was married. He's married to her and getting her pregnant as much as he wanted. Looks like he was getting it as much as he wanted. Why do men do that? And it's not just men, women are dirty too, man.
Elizabeth Siders has now been indicted alongside Gary Siders Jr. in a separate child sex abuse case. The victim is a minor who was not part of their immediate family. Not a footnote. A whole other realm. This case is no longer just about poverty. It's no longer just about neglect. It's about something far darker. Now, before I get to Elizabeth, I want to talk about the people who actually started this whole thing. Dollar store employees. You heard that right. Dollar store employees. The prosecutor credited them with getting the ball rolling. They didn't have badges. They didn't have training, but they had eyes, and they used them. Here's the thing, though. The media didn't put those employees on the front page. Nobody gave them awards, but they're the reason law enforcement ended up at that house. You and I both know what happens to people who stick their nose where they're told not to. They get called nosy. They get ignored. But these employees didn't look away. And in this case, it may have saved 16 lives. Let me back up for everybody new. On June 30th, 2026, law enforcement went to a home on Omar Street in Hampton, Ohio. Inside that home, authorities found 16 children. They ranged from about 18 months old to 18 years old. Some were in serious medical condition. 2 were taken to major trauma centers. Now, earlier reporting said this was a welfare check. Wrong. Investigators were there seeking Gary for a child sex abuse case. A whole other kid outside the immediate family. That is the part nobody talks about. And here's where it gets interesting. The investigation that brought them began in March of 2026. That's months before the raid. According to the Ohio Attorney General's office, Gary Jr. and Elizabeth were both indicted on 4 charges, each stemming from that separate case. The charges say they engaged in sexual conduct with a minor more than 10 years younger than their own age. Between January of 2022 and September of 4 years ago. Let that sink in.
Is she really with child again? I think so. The paperwork on her intake said no, that she wasn't. But we've since we've heard since then that she is. But I don't know. We don't have that confirmed at all. Nature walks. I think it's going to get worse. I think so. I think you're right. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. Sidetrack says, what did I miss? Well, they're indicted and they are doing some really, really nasty things with kids that they shouldn't be doing. You know, that was one of the questions that I had, if you remember. It was probably on Gavin's show. If you watched us on Gavin, I said that, where have they been doing it at? You know, like, she's pregnant so much. Where are they getting it on at? We saw pictures of that house. We know what that house looks like. Where are they getting it on at? And they got so many people right there. They doing it right there in front of everybody.
Now, you got to remember how many times Elizabeth has been pregnant. She was pregnant with conjoined twins in 2022, the same time these charges say she was engaged in that conduct. Actually, wait, let me rephrase that. The timeline makes it even worse. She was carrying a pregnancy while allegedly doing things that would land her in jail 4 years later.
All right, according to Wilson, the charges that Gary Jr. and Elizabeth face in this investigation are 2 counts each of sexual battery, a 3rd-degree felony, 2 counts each of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor, a 3rd-degree felony. Gary Jr. and Elizabeth, along with Gary Jr.'s parents, Gary Siders Sr. and Christina, were all arrested June 30th on child endangering charges when 16 kids was removed from the home, some of whom were in serious medical condition. Authorities said investigators had been at the home to serve an unrelated warrant. While they never officially announced the contents of that warrant, which is what we're learning now, another warrant had been issued that day for Gary Jr. on public indecency charges. However, Vinton County Sheriff Ryan Kane clarified in a video statement that the warrant that they were serving was related to these charges. There have been a lot of speculation and questions regarding the June 30th presence on Omar Street in Hampton. These indictments provide some insight into the ongoing investigation. Do they ever? However, to preserve the integrity of the ongoing investigation and to protect the victims, I conclude my statement here, he said. Benton County Prosecutor William Archer further clarified that the search warrant was issued for the purpose of securing Gary Jr.'s DNA for the child sex abuse case, just as when the child endangering charges were first announced. Archer said this investigation is also not a case of human trafficking and that there is no danger to the general public. According to Wilson and Kane, the investigation launched in March into Gary Jr. and Elizabeth stemmed from a different child sexual abuse case in Benton County, so it was still in the same county. That investigation began in December of 25 and involved sexual abuse allegations involving 2 children. In that case, so this is a completely different case. Oh my gosh, man. In that case, 2 South Bloomingville men identified. See this, Marnie, this is where the 2 men that I heard came in, and I didn't think that they were related. In this case, 2 South Bloomingville men identified by Wilson as Joshua Saunders, 23, and Brandon Henderson, Sr., 40, were indicted and arrested Friday, August 21st. Saunders faces 4 charges, including the R word and gross sexual imposition, and Henderson faces 21 counts, including multiple charges of child endangering, gross sexual imposition, and sexual battery. Along with this announcement, can somebody Google that and see what that means? Gross sexual imposition. Marnie, can you do that for me, honey? And then send it to and then text it to me if you don't care. So that way I don't put any words up on the screen. Gross sexual. I want to know the definition of it or whatever. Just whatever you can find on it. Along with this announcement, Wilson announced that Gary Jr., Elizabeth, Gary Sr., and Christina were all indicted on numerous charges related to the endangerment of the 16 kids within their home. The charges in the separate child endangering investigation, and that's with the 4 in the family. 2 second-degree felony counts of endangering children, 10 third-degree felony counts of endangering, 7 misdemeanor counts.
The paperwork was so messed up that Gary Jr.'s intake form originally said he was pregnant. They marked it out later. That's not a joke. It shows the level of chaos inside that house and inside that family. But the charges against Elizabeth are not chaos. They are specific. 2 counts of sexual battery involving a non-family member. 2 counts of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor involving a non-family member. She's charged with it, not just Gary. That changes a whole lot. And the web gets bigger. In a separate case that started in December of 2025, 2 South Bloomingville men were indicted and arrested on August 21st, Joshua Saunders, 23, and Brandon Henderson Sestern, 40. Saunders faces 4 charges including the R word and gross sexual imposition. Henderson faces 21 counts including child endangering, gross sexual imposition, and sexual battery. And one of those men is Gary Jr.'s sister's husband, so this isn't just one bad household. This is a network of people who should have been stopped years ago.
Let's see, all of the Siders were arraigned on July 1st. And pled not guilty to an original 16 counts each of the child endangering. They then waived their preliminary hearings the following week. The Siders bonds were then set at $300,000. Gary Sr. was granted to get out. We know that. He was released from custody earlier this month. Motions requesting competency evaluations for all 4 Siders defendants have also been granted by a Benton County judge. And then those evaluations will determine if they are able to stand trial. Let's watch this.
We begin this hour with breaking news just into our newsroom. A Vinton County grand jury has handed down in the case involving the Siders. They have handed down indictments in the case involving the alleged endangerment of those 16 children. And here's what we can tell you now at this hour. 2 Siders family members, Gary Siders Jr. and Elizabeth Siders, have been with 2 and unlawful sexual contact with the minor. The charges say the minor was a family member. This is of child endangerment charges against the 2, along with Gary Siders Sr. and Christina Siders.
Okay. That didn't really tell us anything more than what we just knew, did it? All right. So we'll stop sharing that. And so it began with that child sex abuse allegation. Investigators were reportedly there seeking Gary's DNA. Man, oh man. So let's back up for everybody new. On June 30th, 2026, law enforcement went to a home on Omar Street in Hampton, Ohio. Inside that home, authorities found 16 children. Now, earlier reporting said that the children ranged from about 18 months old to 18 years old. That's a lot of pregnancies. Now, officials and reporting described horrible conditions. We do have some photos. Let me go grab one. We also have that old article that they'd put up. So this is just one of them. I think this might be the basement. I'm not sure, but most of the house looked just like this. So we saw reports about the children being found in a small room upstairs. Let's see if I have it sitting right here handy too. I got a picture of that room. Let's see. Yep, there it is. So this is where they slept. And you can see in the back the mattresses that are on the floor. Look at the crates sitting on the floor. Is that their chairs? Is that where they made the kids hang out? I see this with completely different eyes today. I see this with completely different eyes. I saw this as a poverty situation before, I guess because I just wanted to see the good. I didn't want to see any kind of intent. I didn't want to see any kind of, what other word am I looking for that would be better than intent? I don't know, but I just didn't want to see it, whatever it was. And today I feel like I look at it with completely different eyes. I feel like this entire thing is because of their sexual behaviors and their sexual desires. So they were willing to run from the police. They were willing to run from CPS. They were willing to run from everybody that they could run from so they wouldn't find their kids, so they wouldn't take their kids, before I saw this as, oh, they were just not wanting their kids to, be taken because of truancy or something to that effect. And now we see that it's something completely different. It's something totally way, way, way worse than truancy, right? And they had children that were in dire need of medical care in that house. They were in critical condition. They needed help.
You want to know why I thought this was going to be about theft? Because back in 2021, Pike County deputies executed a search warrant at Gary Gin's old place on Bobo Road in Beaver and recovered stolen construction items. That's what my brain told me. I was wrong. I was very wrong.
Is that Gary Jr. and Elizabeth are now both indicted in a separate child sex abuse case. Now, according to reporting, that case involves a minor who was not part of their immediate family. Now, that is the part that blows up the old public frame, blows it all out of the water. Because if Elizabeth is now charged in that child sex case, then this is not just a question of whether she failed to protect her own children, right? The allegation now is that she participated in abusing outside that original frame. So that's a very different conversation altogether. All charges are still allegations. They are presumed innocent until and unless they are proven guilty in a court of law. But a grand jury has now said that there is probable cause for these charges to move forward. So that does say something. And we're not talking about a Letcher County grand jury. We're talking about a Vinton County grand jury in Ohio. So this is the part that I think we should really hear. According to those new reports, law enforcement did not just show up at the Siders' house for a routine welfare check. They were reportedly there because of the sex abuse investigation. Investigators were reportedly seeking Gary's DNA. That matters because for weeks people have asked, well, why now? Well, why June 30th? Well, why did authorities finally go through that door? Well, now the answer appears to be that another investigation led them there, another sexual abuse investigation. So that means those 16 kids were found because a separate sex abuse case cracked open the door. That's chilling because it raises the question that if that other investigation had not happened.
The headline tonight is not just the liberal charges. The headline is that Gary Jr. and Elizabeth are both indicted in a separate child sex abuse case. Now, I need you to stay with me here. This part is personal. I'm a parent too. Imagine opening a door and seeing a room where children slept on mattresses on the floor, crates sitting there like chairs. Human waste. Children thin and delayed. I grew up with nothing. I live in a small house where I sleep on a couch so my kids can have bedrooms. Poverty doesn't make you do what happened in that house. I have to tell you, this one hurts me. It hurts because I wanted so badly to believe Elizabeth was just another victim. But I can't keep telling myself that. Not after these indictments.
Something else that I caught in one of those announcements that the prosecutor gave, he said that this whole thing jumped off from some very studious dollar store employees. So now we found out where I really don't know how. Like, how did a sexual abuse case pop off with the dollar store? Unless maybe the dollar store employees just called in for concern over the kids. And I don't know. I don't know how that happened. But he did credit the dollar store employees with popping it all off. So I don't know how, but they are getting the credit for that. We saw reports about human waste and it just laying in the house. We saw reports about children who were thin, who were delayed developmentally and in need of medical care. We saw reports that several children were hospitalized, critical condition, with those two were reportedly taken to major trauma centers.
And look, the grand jury in Benton County, Ohio, looked at the evidence and said probable cause. That is not a small thing. We're not talking about some local good old boy operation. This is a grand jury saying these charges need to move forward. Elizabeth now faces 23 total charges. Gary Jr. reportedly faces 27.
This is where we need to be grown-ups about it, you know? Man, I was wrong. I was wrong. A lot of us wanted Elizabeth to be one person, the one person in that house that could be understood, that she was different. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she was controlled. Maybe she was broken. Maybe she was also abused. Maybe there is still some part of her story that explains pieces of her life, but these new charges mean that we cannot keep talking about her only as a possible victim. We have to talk about her as an indicted defendant in a child sex abuse case. That does not mean she's convicted. That does not mean that we know every fact, but it does mean that the sympathy lane just got a whole lot narrower. And if these allegations are proven, then the public was not just looking at a woman who failed to protect children and failed to protect her own children. We were looking at somebody accused of participating in the harm. And, you know, now I look at the whole thing with her own kids differently as well. You know, she has a duty as their mother. And so many people said this to me before, and they were right. She had a duty as their mother to protect them. She had a duty as their mother to not let them suffer.
Gary Sr. faces 16 endangerment charges. Christina, the grandma, faces 19. That's a whole lot of paper.
Counts of endangering, and that's 19 charges for Gary Jr. Elizabeth, I guess it's going to be the exact same 19 charges. And then Gary Sr. only has 16. So there's 10 third-degree felony endangering and 6 misdemeanor endangering. And then Christina has 19. So she's got 3 more than Grandpa. 2 second-degree felony, 10 third-degree, and 7 misdemeanor. So it looks like Grandpa's the only one that gets those 2 second degree, the most, those are the harshest ones anyway. The indictments in this case include charges in the alternative, meaning that multiple counts or different theories of a crime have been charged for the same acts. Doing so allows for a more complete and appropriate presentation of evidence to the court and jury, Wilson explained. Okay, so what I think that is, have you all ever seen, or well, I know you have, but most of you true crimers out there, if you notice like how a jury goes to deliberate, and a lot of times they'll have like, if somebody's charged, say, with murder, and they'll have like manslaughter, and they'll probably have like 3 different kinds of murder, and then they'll throw a manslaughter or something on there. And they do that so the jury has a complete, thank you, Crystal, they do that so the jury has a complete, like a smorgasbord of things that they could convict them on, right? So, like, if they don't think that it's really like murder one, but they think, oh, well, we could probably get them. Thank you, Marnie. We could probably get them on murder two, or we could get them on manslaughter. But if they don't have all those on there for the jury to pick from, then they might get off. Because if they've only got murder one on there, and the jury don't think that it's murder one, but they don't have anything else for them to choose from, you know, then they would be found not guilty, I guess. I've seen that happen too. I know you guys have too. But, all right, so let's see what Miss Marnie and Miss Crystal sent us. Thank you, girls. I appreciate that so much. We've got the best mods, man. All right, gross sexual imposition is a criminal charge, of course. It means having non-consensual sexual contact with another person by using force or threats or rugs, or when the victim is a young child or mentally or physically unable to consent. Oh my gosh. Oh, Marnie, I'm so sorry, honey. Don't you? You be careful, sissy. God bless you. Marnie pulled over on the side of the road to send us that. She was driving. Oh, I told you we got the best mods, man. Jeesh. Praise the name of Jesus. All right, so you know what that makes me wonder? You see how mentally handicapped everybody tends to be. Surely they weren't doing nothing to anybody, a child that was mentally handicapped. That sure would be bad, wouldn't it? Well, I mean, it's all bad, but I don't know why I'd be surprised. I don't know why I would be surprised, but I would. I can't help it. My brain just don't work that way. Does y'all's? I know it don't. No. Normal people's brains don't work like this. All right, so the legal definition and rules of this is the contact. It means touching an erogenous zone, like the thighs, the tail, the tatas, to get sexual pleasure. Well, I don't know about you, but I've known a whole lot of dirty old men that old Bill Meade. That old Bill Meade, I reckon that's all he ever did was grab women's tatas every chance he got. You know, old Ben Fields' Uncle Bill. No, there's no penetration required for this charge. The attacker forces the victim to submit using physical power or threats, impairment. So one of those other guys charged it is Gary's Junior's sister's husband. Oh! So one of the men that was charged in that was Gary Junior's sister, her husband.
But the Attorney General said the victim in that separate case is not a member of the immediate family. Not immediate. That word matters. Could be extended family. Could be someone they knew through that tangled web of people. That's the part that chills me to the bone.
So here's the charge breakdown from the reporting. Gary Jr., faces 2 counts of sexual battery involving a non-family member, 2 counts of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor involving a non-family member, 4 counts of public indecency, 2 second-degree felony counts of endangering children, and then 10 third-degree felony counts of endangering and 7 misdemeanor counts of endangering. Now, Elizabeth, she reportedly faces 2 counts of sexual battery involving a non-family member, 2 counts of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor involving a non-family member. And this is her. She's charged with it, not just Gary. That changes a whole lot, too. Miss Tricia said, did the children eat the drywall? You know, I asked that same question. I have seen in other stories where children were starved and they ate the drywall off of the walls. They would pick it out and then eat it because I guess it was the only thing that they could put in their mouth. It was the only thing that they could eat. So I asked the exact same question. Let's get back to her charges. She's got 2 second-degree felony endangering, 10 third-degree felony counts of endangering, 7 misdemeanor, and then Gary Sr.'s just got 10 third-degree, 6 misdemeanor, and then Christina's got 2 second-degree felony endangering and 10 third degree, and then the 7 misdemeanor. Don't. Hush.
The same day they went looking for his DNA, there was another warrant issued for Gary Jr. on public indecency charges. So they had him on one thing and then walked into a house with 16 kids. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. You already knew it wasn't just poverty. You saw those photos. You saw the crates and the filth. Your gut told you something was off when they said no danger to the public. You know, just like I know that institutions love to call things neglect when they don't want to call it what it really is. They use words like welfare check and or related warrant to keep you from asking too many questions. But the paper trail always comes out, and when it does, it exposes exactly what they tried to hide. Here's the thing that makes me angry. Those 16 kids found because a separate sex abuse case cracked open the door. That's what led the cops there, not a concerned neighbor. Not a social worker. A separate investigation for a child outside the family. So what does that tell you? It tells me they could have been found sooner. Or maybe not at all. If that other investigation had never happened, when would those children have been found? When one of them died? That's the question I can't shake. It keeps me up at night. And I know it's keeping you up too because you're still watching. You're still waiting for the truth. The mental health evaluations have been granted for all Forsythers defendants. The sheriff said he's preserving the integrity of the ongoing investigation. But you and I both know that's code for we're not telling you everything yet. There are more pieces coming, more names, more charges. And the reason for that, well, you'll see. So here's where I land tonight. I was wrong about Elizabeth.
But it was all I had. It was all I could afford. It was all we were going to have. That means I didn't have no bedroom. That means I had to figure it out. But my kids needed bedrooms. So out of the 4 rooms, one kid's got 1 bedroom, one kid's got the other bedroom, and then this room triples as my bedroom. I got a couch right there that I sleep on. This is my workspace, my desk, my big fancy desk Jenny gave me. So it gives me a little space, a little corner workspace. And I guess it would triple as a living room, but we don't never have company, so I ain't got to worry about that. And then our kitchen. And then we got the bathroom. that's in Alan's room. But, you know, you've got to do what you got to do, right? For your kids. She didn't have to stay there. She didn't have to stay married to that man. She didn't have to keep having these kids. She didn't have to, and we know what causes that. We know what causes pregnancy.
A lot of us were. We wanted her to be the one person in that house who could be understood. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she's controlled. Maybe she was broken. Those things can still be true. A person can be a victim and a perpetrator at the same time.
It is. All right. So the new indictment changed this whole case. Gary Jr. Reportedly faces 27 total charges. Do you guys think this is life? You think they'll ever get out? Elizabeth Siders reportedly faces 23 total charges. Gary Sr. reportedly faces 16 endangerment charges. Christina, grandma, reportedly faces 19 charges. And, you know, them two wouldn't be facing any charges if they didn't let Junior and his wife move in. You know what? I'm hoping, well, I better not say that because I don't know how involved Grandma and Grandpa have been. I don't know what all Grandma and Grandpa knew. They had to have known something. And they could have at any time picked up the phone and called and said, hey, my son and his wife are right here in my house, and I need you to come get them. Yeah, I need you to do whatever you need to do and get right on over here. Miss Carrie Ann, I grew up in poverty, but it didn't look like that. I know, man, I know. This was an old article here. It was from 2021. Pike County Sheriff's Office up in Ohio. Sheriff Tracy D. Evans reports that on October 8th at 5:37 p.m., deputies executed a search warrant at the residence of Gary Siders Jr. at 2495 Bobo Road, Bobo Road in Beaver. There were numerous items recovered that had been reported stolen from a local construction site. So this is what made me think it was going to be theft. Was this history of it. Warrants will be requested. And then it went on. This is what made me think it was going to be something to do like receiving stolen property or theft or just something like that. That's what my brain was telling me. I was wrong. I was very wrong. But the headline tonight is not just the number of charges. The headline is that Gary Jr. and Elizabeth are now both indicted in a separate child sex abuse case.
But these new charges mean we cannot keep talking about her only as a possible victim. We have to talk about her as an indicted defendant in a child sex abuse case. The dollar store employees saw something. They said something.
Now, that was already awful enough. Then came the public argument. Was this poverty? Was this neglect? Was this abuse? Was this a failure of services somehow? Was Elizabeth another victim in all of this abuse? Was she a victim in that house? And I'll say it again because it matters. Based on what we knew then, asking whether Elizabeth was a victim too was fair. It's absolutely fair. Women can be controlled. Women can be trapped. Women can be abused and still be charged. Women can be both harmed and responsible for harm. But these new indictments mean that we now have to look at Elizabeth a little bit differently. No, TT. So thank you. So happy to be part of the family. Yeah, support with Steffa. Hello, honey. We ain't seen you in a while. I was sympathizing with mom as a victim. Not anymore. Philip, damn, she gets pregnant every time the wind blows. Elizabeth, I feel the same way. Yeah, I agree. It's almost embarrassing at this point. Oh. But, hey. Trisha, I've been watching you from the start when you were on the other guy's show, but this is the first time I've made a comment. Hello, and I'm here. I'm from East Kentucky. So glad you're here. Thank you for commenting and letting us know. God bless you. Beetle bug. I now want DNA of the kids. Yeah.
And because of that, 16 kids got pulled out of that house. But how many other houses are out there right now? How many other people are hiding behind the word poverty? Or neglect? While children are suffering in ways we don't want to imagine? That's not a rhetorical question. I want you to think about it. And I want you to tell me in the comments what you think they're still hiding. I'll see you tomorrow night. But tonight, I'm angry. And I know you are too.